Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Huffer and Friends. This podcast is designed to help you flourish at life and relationships. I'm your host, Huffer, lead pastor at the Gathering Christian Church in Naples, Florida. And if you want to follow along, you can do that on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. We also have an Instagram account that shows like just different reels and different clips and lets you know when new episodes are available. I believe that I have the best friends in the world, and that they help me flourish in life, and that me sharing them with you will help you flourish as well. So today I'm super excited. I have one of my best friends and accountability partners, Cody Graves. So Cody, tell everyone a little bit about yourself, like what you do, your story, ministry, and your family.
Sure, yeah. So like I said, my name's Cody Graves. I'm a pastor in Baxter Springs, Kansas, which is a tiny town that's in extreme southeast Kansas. It's close to Joplin, Missouri. It's literally like the border of Oklahoma is a road that's on the edge of our town. So I mean, it's extreme southeast Kansas. But it's been great. We've been here for 12 years. It's been really a great time, a great ministry. There's been lots of growth in all the ways that I think pastors want there to be growth, and so that's been really cool to see with people and just kind of build relationships and form a community here. And so that's been great. We've had a great time with that. But my wife's a middle school teacher in Joplin. This is her second year doing that. She took some time off teaching when we had our first child. So we have two kids, Ezra and Isaiah, who are 5 and a week away from being 3. And so that's just been fun as well for us to kind of start that family. And the community we've built here at this church has been so incredibly supportive and helpful in all the ups and downs of having 2 insane children in the house. And so that's been really good. So yeah, this has just been us for the past few years, and like I said, we've been very blessed to be here. And I mean, everyone says that their church is the best church, but our church really is the best church.
It is.
And so I talk to other pastor friends, and they tell me things. Not obviously not Cy would never say anything like this, but they tell me about problems at their church and issues that they have, and I just listen to them and go, that's tough, man. I don't have that issue, but that's tough for you, man. So we've been really blessed to be here, and it's been exciting.
That's so cool, man. And I love just how you've loved that church so well, and you've just been so faithful and patient and kind, to them. And I don't know, and if you guys have ever listened to Cody preach or any teach, Cody is a fantastic communicator. He takes hard things, deep theological truths, cultural issues, and he really, really brings them down on the lower shelf for just people who are, I think about the unschooled ordinary man verse from Acts, and that was what the disciples were. And you just do that. You just help anyone in every stage of life engage in really thoughtful, tough topics. And so I just love Cody's preaching. He's worth listening to. You guys live stream, don't you, or podcast or something?
Yeah. We have a YouTube page that we live stream to, and then we upload them to our website.
And Cody has a great mid-range game in basketball. And so I don't know if you guys, if you ever end up on a court with him, no, you may not think right off the bat, but this guy has a great killer mid-range, 20-footer.
The play is absolutely, the play is let Cy drive to the hole, and I will stand there and not move. And when my guy eventually helps, then I get the ball and I'll just shoot it. So I play the style of basketball that involves the least amount of me moving.
I always say I can fake running at every sport except for soccer, and that's why I don't play soccer. But I know how to
Yes.
fake running at all the other stuff. So
Yeah.
So one of my favorite questions to ask people is how do we become friends? I love listening to your answer because I have in my head how we became friends and what that relationship
Sure.
looked like and developed. But you share there about our friendship story.
Yeah. So we in college, that's where we met, and we kind of met via mutual friends. So which you've had Atlas on the podcast, and he was kind of our the glue that kind of connected that at first, and so we kind of got to know each other that way a little bit. But then, I got this job here in Baxter, which is close to Joplin, and then when you got your job in Joplin, we started meeting for kind of a accountability slash reading group. You had this insane reading schedule of a book a week that you were trying to do, and you invited me to do you do jumping out any of these you want, and I was like, there's no way I'm reading a book a week. And so I think I did 2 of the weeks. I was 2 books a month. We were meeting twice a month and stuff. So that was and that's, I think, where our friendship really kind of
Yeah.
grew. I kind of got to know you and connect with you doing those kind of just meetups and talking about church and ministry and life and whatever we were reading and stuff. So that's where really I think where that kind of started. That as much as we were connected in college, I think that's where our friendship really kind of started. It's kind of been there ever since then. So
100%. That's how I would. I mean, that's how I envisioned it too. Like, I think like in college, I think, are you 2 years younger than me? Were you a freshman when I was a
yeah, too.
junior?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because we were only in the dorms for 1 year together, and
Oh
then
yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah. That's it.
married right after that.
Yep. Well, then I
And
got
then
married too. After, oh no,
yeah,
I was in their dorms
yeah,
one more year. I was in the dorms
yeah,
one more year, but then I got married as well. Yeah,
and then we were
which we were
neighbors.
neighbors.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
Ozarks married
For a few
dorms
months.
at the
Yeah.
Ambassador Apartments, and
Yes.
so
We
yeah,
so it's I mean, I'm sure other people have similar stories. I'm young. I got married when I was 20. And so, I'm young and I'm not really sure, we're getting out on our own. And I remember it was like a month before the wedding. I mean, maybe 6 weeks. And I was like, we haven't found a place to live. Like we haven't even really like looked for a place to live. Like just kind of thinking like, oh, you can snap your fingers and get an apartment or whatever. And I remember kind of panicking. And it was like a week later, Cy called me and goes, dude, the guy next to me is moving out. You've got to like talk to the person today. And so like I'd already left an application, but I called the owner of the apartment. I was like, hey, has anything opened up perchance, recently?
yeah.
And she was like, yeah, someone's moving out today. And so like, but yeah, I remember Cy made that phone call and was like, they're moving stuff out right now.
And I loved having you next to me. But the best thing about having you next to me was Tiffany's chocolate chip cookies. I mean, she would make
Yeah.
these monster chocolate
Huge.
chip cookies that were like almost like gooey in the middle, like not even quite. Oh my gosh, dude, those
Yep.
I dream about those all the time.
Yep.
I need to
Yep.
tell her that. I
Yep.
haven't told her that in a long time, but that was like
You do. That'll
the
make her feel
best.
good.
Oh yeah,
That'll
oh
make her
yeah.
feel good.
So I'll make sure to share that. So today we're focusing in on the idea of community and in Christian relationship and friendship and having a church family. And all of those things can mean different things. A lot of times we use those interchangeably: church family, community, friendship, but they're not all necessarily the same. And so which is crazy when I asked you to do this, you were preaching on this concept and this idea. And so I'd love for you to kind of just share your own experience as a pastor. You do friendship really well. You are one of the most loyal friends that I have had. I mean, you walked me through a
Well,
horrible
thank you.
season in ministry and with friendship and community, and you are a rock for me for a long period of time. And so just and then we call each other. We're part of an accountability group. There's 4 of us. Every night we have a 5 to 10 minute conversation based on how much John wants to talk. But uh, but uh,
That's so true.
but we were accountability partners for 5 years now. I don't know how long it's been a while. And so
Oh, wow.
you've been with me through the thick and the thin of life, the highs and the lows. And so I really value your perspective on community and friendship and how you do this in the church. And so I'd love to kind of hear, as a pastor of a church, doing this well, your own gifting, some of your responses to these struggles, these questions. So first, why is finding a community, a people to belong to and live life with, why is that such an ache for people? Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think there's two. The word ache, I think, is good. I think because I think it opens up two. There's kind of two answers to that. And I think the first one is the kind of theological answer. I think it's the we were made like we were literally created for a community. We were made in Genesis 1 and 2. Genesis 1, God makes us in his image. And one of the things we know about God is that he's community. The Trinity, the mechanics of the Trinity are not just hard to explain, but impossible to explain. But the mechanics aren't really the point of the Trinity. The
Yeah.
Trinity is there to tell us about who God is. And so one of the things we know about God, because God is three in one, is that God is community. Like
Mhm.
he is relationship. He is love. And so when we're made in God's image, like we're built for it. And then in Genesis 2, it's kind of a retelling of the creation of man and woman. And in Genesis 2, where he makes Adam and Eve is not around yet, and the God literally says it's not good that man's alone. And so he brings all the animals to Adam, and Adam names them all. And at the end of it, it still says there wasn't a partner suitable for Adam. And just the idea that, no dog, no cat, no cow, like there's nothing out there that's going to fill this something in us that needs other people,
Yeah.
that we're made for relationship. And so I think that's one thing. Like we just made for relationship. I think ache for it because we lack it more than ever in our world.
Mm.
Um, I think that we're all made for it, but that word ache just made me think about like this we all desire it, and but we many of us have an unmet desire, and so we want it, we're made for it, but in our world today, I mean, there's so many people who long for it because they just simply don't have it.
Yeah, I think so. As you were talking about like paradise, right? Like the garden
Mhm.
is paradise, and that's how it's described, and the fact that Adam was there alone with creation. There's so many people that are love the whole Jesus and me and Jesus spirituality, right? Like my church is on the golf course, or my church is on a hunting
Right?
whatever it's called. I can't think right now. Like a hunting chair, or what's it called?
Hunting chair. That's it.
Is
That's
that
the name.
hunting chair?
Hunting
That
chair.
sounds so bad. I'm from Oklahoma.
That's
I
not
should
good
know
though.
that. My church is at the beach with the ocean. It's like
Yeah.
while being in creation, alone with God in silence and solitude is a pathway to God. I'm not denying that. There is something incomplete about you as a person if that is all you have. Because
Yeah.
honestly, when when God is talking about Adam in the garden, he's by himself, but he's with God. Like
Yeah.
God's there too. God's not there with Adam in the garden, but he's still saying,
Right.
"No, this is not complete. Like it
Yeah.
is not good for you to be alone just with me. Like you need something more than this," which is fascinating to think about. Like
Yeah.
that
E-
that that.
Even yeah, even the like, and as you're kind of saying that, even like the most the people who are most hardwired for that kind of solo spirituality. And so I think of like these monks in the fourth century who would go out into the deserts of Egypt to just be alone. And I mean, they were fanatical about it. Like they were like, man, I like what we're doing requires solitude. The kind of spiritual work we're doing requires solitude. And as fanatical as they were about it, they lived close enough that they could still get together on Sunday for church. Like they lived close enough that like we will still have people in our lives. And so like even these dudes who were wanted to go out into the desert, into these caves so they could be alone with Jesus, still were like, I'm not going to get so far away that I can't be with other people. And I think that's yeah, I think that's says something.
And I never knew that about the Desert Fathers until you share that with me in our retreat or one of our calls, and that blew my mind. Like that they still gather together on Sundays with other believers, even when they were committed to a life of solitude. Which, by the way, there was
Mhm.
an over under on how long it would take for you to mention the Desert Fathers, and you were at 12, 12, 12. Okay, so I want to mark it
Okay.
for the pool going on.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. But no, I think that, and what you said, secondly, of like we don't have it. We're looking for it. We're yearning for it, and yet we're more connected than ever on social media. You hear people talk about that all the time. And I think the curse of social media is that not only do you feel alone, you know, but you can
Yep.
now get on on scrolling, and you can see all of these other posts of everybody else with other people,
Yeah.
and you're like, man, I feel so alone. But look at all these other people. Why was I not invited? Used to, you didn't know
Yeah.
if
Right.
someone else went out with another family for a whatever, a shindig. And yet now, anytime anyone goes out with anybody, let's take a picture and let's post about it. Had a great time with the Graves at dinner tonight. And then you have someone who wasn't invited to that dinner looking at it by themselves, feeling alone, late at night,
Yeah.
going, I feel so alone, and it's just this over saturation of like what you're missing out on. And yet that's not what community is just going out for
Yeah.
dinner. That's a part of it. But I love the picture of like Adam and Eve in the garden, totally naked. Not because I'm for that, but I'm just saying,
Gross, man.
yeah, I know. Come on, Si. But that's the like what we're missing is like that kind of depth of relationship of
Yeah.
completely vulnerable to someone else and there's no shame.
Yeah.
And that is more than a picture of you all out for dinner, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's
Yep.
an ache for that vulnerability and that closeness. There's this oversaturation of like these snapshots of the rest of the world, and then there is this thing hardwired in us to know we need other people. So what gets in the way of finding a
Yeah.
place where you can belong? Why is it so hard for people today?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I was thinking about that. I think there's a few things that really make it difficult for us to find community, to find genuine, that deep kind of, as Cy likes to emphasize, that naked community um, that we want to have, that intimacy, that sharing. Um, I think first of all, we're busy. We're so busy, and we think busy. I mean, we almost moralize being busy. That if you're busy, you're important, you're trying, you're doing something productive. And if you're not busy, then you're lazy and you're you know apathetic. If you have time to meet with people for an hour every week, or 2 hours, if you have time to do have fellowship, like real community, then I mean you must be kind of lazy. I just don't have time for that. Um, Again, I'm coming up fresh off a sermon, so I've got some stuff. But in Galatians 6, in verse 3, Paul had just talked about. He just said, verse 2, he says, "Share one another's burdens." And then in verse 3, he says, "If you think you're too important not to help other people, you are lying to yourself. You're not that important." And I just think of that idea of, I don't have time for, community. I'm too important for that. Like I just have too much going on. I've got all these commitments and these blah blah blah. And it's like, you're not that important, man. Like this is an important thing that you need to make space for. So I think our busyness hurts us. I think also any kind of community forming always comes with friction. So, I want to make friends, and so I've got to put myself in these kind of again, using the side terminology, these kind of naked, vulnerable positions where I'm just like, I'm kind of out there, and I don't know if people are going to accept me or reject me, and I don't know if, and as adults, it's usually not like bullying, but you still like, you can like kind of put yourself out there and not connect, and that feels bad. And so there's always some friction there. And in our day and age today, we have more distractions. Blaise Pascal he talks a lot about this idea of distraction, that we distract ourselves from meaningful things. We have more distractions than ever. We can pull our phone out and be entertained. We're so comfortable in our air conditioned homes. I mean, we have streaming and games and just, I mean, any number of distractions. And so there's, on the one hand, I could go out and put myself out there and be vulnerable, and maybe not make any connections. I mean, the odds of you making a meaningful connection by, this night of whatever league or whatever public thing you want to go to, you got invited to this party by an acquaintance, maybe you'll meet someone there that you'll connect with. The odds of that are actually pretty slim. You'll probably go away from that and be like, well, I met some people, but I didn't like really connect with anybody at that one event. So I could go out, maybe be kind of embarrassed, have some friction, or I could just pull my phone out and stay inside, and kind of distract myself. And we live on those distractions and we avoid the friction of community. And then eventually, though, one day we go, why don't I have any friends? Like, why am I so alone? Like, why are they, so close? And I see that and I want that. Well, they went through a lot of friction to get there. And so I think all the distractions we have really hurt us. And then something that I deal with in my community, we have a lot of really, in a rural community. Again, I don't know how pervasive this is. This may be more of a rural community thing. And I know the Cy Huffer podcast is national, and so there will be people who will connect to this. But in my community, we have a lot of big families, and which are great. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. I hope my family moves here. I'm always telling mom and dad, like, hey, you guys, when you guys think about moving down here. So like, I have nothing against that. But I think sometimes having a big family in your area um, keeps you kind of insulated from community. You just lean on them constantly for your community. Your parents, your brother or sister, maybe even like one family friend you grew up with, you went through school with, and grade school with, and high school with, or whatever. And so you never really reach out and build any kind of built community. Which the issue that causes, it's not so much on you as much, although that you are kind of limiting yourself. But there's people at our church who don't have those big families, and man, it's hard for them to break in when everyone's kind of like, I've got my community. I've got all these, this family members and cousins, and we have like this big, kind of just we grew up together. And here's so and so who, doesn't have that, and they're really never going to get it because everyone around them's already in a family group. And so I think having like a big family sometimes is an impediment to actually going out and building community because you just go, well, I don't need community. I go talk to mom and dad, I go talk to whatever. So I think those are some things that I see at least that are just walls to community.
Dude, I think that's so true. And I think every context of ministry is different. Like, where we are, it's everyone's transplants. So everyone left their support system up north
Yeah.
and came down here to live, and so they don't have that. But I think the principle remains the same, right? The principle is you have your people, so now we're closed,
Yes.
right? We're done. We're good. I'm good. Like, I have my
Yeah.
community, and
Yeah.
yet that's never been the truth of the gospel. Like, the truth of the gospel is to pursue hospitality.
Yeah.
Romans 12 says pursue hospitality, and it's the Greek word dioko, and it's the same word used translated as persecute.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
So it's
That's
so
good.
so that same word dioko is the idea of a fervent pursuit after, like with zeal, with passion, with
Yeah.
sometimes anger and rage. And they're saying, okay, now take that same word to persecute, to pursue. Now pursue, run after, go after with all you got. Hospitality, the love of stranger is what the word
Yeah.
hospitality is. And it's like, okay, if you already feel like I'm set, I got my community, I'm good. Where's the pursuit of the stranger in that? You
Yeah.
know, and I
Yeah.
think that's a huge piece to it.
Yeah. And kind of like piggybacking on, you mentioned that sometimes you kind of you like to verbalize sermons and kind of work things through. And with
Yeah.
this, well, I'm doing the same thing with you now because I'm this week we're starting a generosity sermon series in Luke 12 where Jesus tells the parable of the man who has this great harvest, and he says, "What am I going to do with this harvest? I'll just build bigger barns, right? And I'll just keep it kind of." And I just think about that sometimes with community. If people who go when you say, "I'm good," like I feel very comfortable. I have my group, I have my friends, like I'm good. I'm not doubting you. You probably are good,
Yeah.
but I can't imagine Jesus saying, "Man, you've nailed community. Now don't go share it with anybody." Like you've cracked the code on community. Now just like ride that for the rest of your life. Like I just can't picture Jesus. I mean that's the building bigger barns. Just instead of with money, it's with relationships. I'm just gonna kind of keep it all right here. And yeah, that idea of man, we got to take what we've learned and then like go give it. I mean, be generous with our relational knowledge and acumen.
You can be greedy about community.
Yeah, right, right,
Right.
right.
Yeah. There's Alan Hirsch. He wrote a book called The Forgotten Ways, and it's about being missional as a church and how like these movements of mission had like some standard like practices that the church leaned into, and one of them is I think it's a French word, communitas. I just love saying
Mm.
it because I sound smart, but I don't really
Oh yeah,
know, its origin or where it comes from. But what Alan Hirsch describes it as is that communitas is a community that is centered in its magnetic north is not the community. It's a community centered on mission. And so
mm,
if a community has a purpose that drives it, that pulls it, that kind of aligns the community towards that mission, that purpose, that's communitas. That's a community that lasts, right? And so when, our
yeah,
groups at our church, they multiply. Like we tell them from the get go. Every week we say, hey, we're not here to be friends. We're here to make disciples and to help sure no one walks alone. And so friendship is the vehicle, relationshiip's a vehicle, but it's not the destination. And that is so hard when you finally, and we say it every week, because if you don't say it every week, you find a close knit community of people that are your friends. What do you want to do? You want to just grab that thing and protect it because finally I have
yeah,
what I've been aching for all along. And yet I
yeah,
have, in 20 years of being in ministry in some capacity or another in the church, vocationally, the groups that center itself on community, not on the mission of reaching the lost and multiplying and making disciples, but center on the relationship itself, I have found are the ones that typically implode the messiest. Because just that like that's just we're just here just to be together. and and to care for each other. And then over time, something happens, something will erode a relationship, friction, whatever it is. And that loss of, the pursuit of the other, inviting others in, making disciples, reproducing, that's gone. It's not ever been there. And then when community is all that the community is designed to do, you just end up faltering. And yet, 2 Timothy 2, when Paul tells Timothy, hey, what you've heard from me, entrust to reliable people who will be able to teach others also. So there's 4 generations of multiplication: Paul, Timothy, reliable people, others, right? And he's saying multiply, multiply, multiply. Right after that, he gives 3 metaphors of the soldier, the athlete, and the farmer. And when you hear that, it took me a while to pick up on this, but the closest knit communities I know, that hey, we're not blood brothers, but we're brothers, are soldiers. Like, we fought in the trenches together, right? We went through hell together. It's athletes. Like, we're traveling together. We're going and playing games. We're late nights at McDonald's after the game, after a loss. We're helping each other. It's farmers. Like, my barn burned down, and the whole farming community comes together to rebuild the barn. Like, those people are close knit beyond probably anything, but they don't exist for community. Soldiers exist to fight the war, athletes to fight to win the game, and farmers to farm the land. Like, it's funny. Those closer communities center on a task, not on community. And yet, when you do that, you actually may have even a strong community because you have a shared purpose, a shared task.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was doing study for this, I came up with, I didn't find it. I was listening to a sermon by Tim Keller, who he finds all my books for me because he just it comes out of him. But he talked about C.S. Lewis writing about friendship, and that was C.S. Lewis's one of his main points was that like real authentic friendship can only happen when there's a shared mission. That if it's just turned inward, it ends up deteriorating into something superficial. But if there's some kind of shared mission and value, that becomes this kind of deeper friendship. And that soldier analogy, is right there with that.
Yeah, I think Alan Hirsch calls it the organizing principle. What's the organizing principle? Is it just the relationship itself, or is it something larger, higher than that? I want to go back to one thing you mentioned is busyness. That gets in the way of community. I think you're so right. And I was listening to a sermon by Mark Moore yesterday from CCV, one of our old professors. And he said something, he had some stats on some things. But one of the things he says is, you're not too busy. The average American spends 7 hours a day on devices. Just that fact alone just blew my mind. 7 hours a day. And not for work, he says, for entertainment. And so there is time in the day. It's just it's not that you don't have time, you're not making time for it. He said this line, dude, this line just wrecked me. I'm trying to get it right. He said, pursuing friendship will cost you. Remaining lonely charges interest. And I think it's going to cost you time and energy and focus and money.
Yep.
You're going to go out to dinner with people. You're going to spend money. You're going to have to put it on your calendar and say no to other things. You're going to have to focus on other people, not just yourself. Like, hey, my friend's birthday is today, which we missed one of our best friend's birthday 2 days ago. Sorry, Atlas, we love you. But it's going to cost you those things. But the alternative to remaining lonely is consistently, the research shows people who are lonely have more health issues, greater sense of, I think he mentioned dementia, skyrockets for those that are lonely and do not have significant friendships, which is it's just fascinating to think about. God hardwired us, and the research is catching up. So what is the church? Where does the church do this really well, this community thing? And where does the church struggle?
I think the church should, in its best case scenario, does this really well by providing spaces that we can come and be loved where we're at, that we don't have to be afraid of, which is weird, and it may sound weird to people, but because that would be the opposite end of the spectrum, which is what we do poorly sometimes. But best case scenario should be provide a space where we can come and not feel judged, where we can come and feel like where I'm at right now is where Jesus is meeting me. Where I'm at right now is where, I'm on this journey and God is with me right here. And I don't have to pretend to be something I'm not. I don't have to put on airs, because God isn't going to meet me when I get to, but He's going to meet me right now. And so I think that, in the best case scenario, the church can do that. The church can do that, should be able to do that better than anyone else on the planet. I mean, what other group can you go to? What other institution? Like, what can you sign up for? I mean, if you go to a party and you're trying to like meet somebody, you're trying to socialize, you're instantly, no one there at the party is going to be like, I just want to kind of meet you where you're at right now. They're always going to be, well, what do you do? And what, tell me a bit about your successes, and what, I mean, if you sign up for a league of some kind, a golf league or a bowling league, or just something to get out there. I mean, they're interested in how well you play and perform. I mean, there's really no other place where we're like, hey, we really want to meet you where you're at, and we want you to know Jesus where you're at, and you don't have to just present the best version of yourself. Um, so I think the church can do that really well. Again, I think it can do it in a way that no other group can. I mean, it doesn't make sense for other groups to do that, but it makes sense for us to do that. I think the way we do it, like the bad side of that, it is that other side of it where people have had church experiences. I mean, maybe people listen to this are like, I don't know what church you're talking about, Cody, because I've never been to that church. That the church experiences that they've had are judgmental, are that they felt like they were told you're not good enough, that Jesus isn't interested in you yet. I remember. I mean, that's such a common refrain that people I know that are kind of keeping church at arm's length is, well, I just don't have my stuff together yet. I need to get some stuff together first. Like I'm just not. I'm not where I need to be in life to be, to really show up back up at church. I'll be there, here in a few months, here in a year, whatever, and that whole attitude just comes out of some past church hurt experience of being at church and not feeling like I'm just not good enough. I'm not good enough for Christ. I'm not good enough for this group. I'm being judged. And I think I think there's a lot of churches that unfortunately do that. And I want to give them the benefit of the doubt that they do it out of a sense of trying to be holy and trying to love God, but it really misses the Jesus of the Gospels, the Jesus of eating at Zacchaeus' house, and the Jesus of who was accused of hanging out with sinners and prostitutes and tax collectors, and the Jesus that the Pharisee, when the woman washes his feet, and he knew who this woman was, and he wouldn't let her do that, and Jesus is like, I would definitely do that, let her do that. I know exactly who she is, and um, I just think that that's what we can do really well that other places can't. Unfortunately, sometimes we miss the mark on that, though.
Yeah, even like the phrase as you're talking, put on your Sunday best.
Yeah,
It's like, no, you got to go get dressed up for church. And
yeah,
I'm all about, you know, approaching God with reverence and awe and wonder as to who
uh,
He is. But there's a balance there of like when we do that in such a way, it communicates to the outsider,
yeah,
hey, when you come here, you can't come with coffee stains on your shirt. You can't
yeah,
come with missing a shoe. Um, like you gotta have your act together, and that's not. I know most people who think I'm gonna give God my best. That's not the intent. That's not
no,
the
no, yeah,
intent. Is to give my God my best at the exclusion to communicate to others they're not welcome. Right. I
yeah,
remember hearing a story from it may be a mythological story. I think it's true, though. I was told that a guy from our college, his name's Kyle Eidelman, he preaches at a big church in Louisville, that he was challenged by one of his mentors, like, hey, um, you know, when you preach and when you're on stage, like, you need to be in a suit. Like, if you were being the president of the United States, would you dress like this? And he said, and his response was, I would if he was my dad. you know and it's like the reality is like God is God of the universe, king of the universe. He's also our father, and
yeah,
approaching him as we are broken. Like, I want my kid to come to me. They don't have to
yeah,
fix their problems. I'm there to help. I'm there to
yeah. Our
meet them there.
yeah, our church kind of had an arc with that. I mean, when our church literally is, and the same exactly what you said. Nobody, like not a soul, maybe one soul, but no more than one person would have been like, I'm putting on airs, or this is like they're really like authentically, I just want to come to God and my
Yeah.
best, and like put on my best self. And it was very, it wasn't like that. But our church literally is 200 feet from the country club. I mean, there's a golf course that I could, just it take me 60 seconds to walk to it, and it goes across our parking lot. Um, so and our church was that. I mean, we were the country club church, not just because we're that close to one, but I mean, we have a lot of professionals at our church. And I remember when we were first starting here, um, they, my sister-in-law was living with us, and she went to church. When she came back, and she's like, "Oh, I did not feel welcome there." And we were like, "Well, what happened? Did someone, like flip you off, or like what happened?
Yeah.
Like what?" And she was like, "No, I just like I showed up in jeans and a t-shirt, and I think I was the only person in church wearing that, and I just." She just felt very put off by it. And so we had a whole arc with that. And I remember having conversations around this. And the two things I would say is like, yeah, like being on your best when you come before God, that makes all the sense in the world. Thing is, like God tore the curtain and the temple in two, and now he lives in us. So you're always in front of God. Like, so unless you're going to wear a suit to sleep in, like, unless you're going to like, we don't come to like in the Old Testament, when you went to the temple, you were literally closer to God than you were when you were not at the temple, because God in the Holy of Holies was more manifest there than in a special way than he was elsewhere. Not that he wasn't elsewhere, but he really was more there. But that's not the case anymore. Like, because of the blood of Jesus, like he lives in me. And so like to dress up to go to church makes no sense, because I mean, I'm literally with him in the car. And so we've talked about that. And then we also talked about, so it's not, you're not loving God by doing that, really. Yeah. I mean, it's not really. And you're not loving your neighbor. You're certainly not loving your neighbor by doing that. And so we talked a lot about that too. And I shared several examples of people telling me, like, I showed up to church in my jeans. I was worried about, like, am I going to fit in? And I saw you preaching in jeans. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, it's all right. And so, like, yeah, it doesn't love God more. It definitely doesn't love your neighbor more. And so I think that's, yeah, something to think through.
It's crazy the power that you have by presentation. I mean, by how you dress, like
Yeah.
as the pastor,
Yeah.
as leaders in the church. Like I have my hat collection behind me, not because I'm obsessed with hats. First of all, my office is a closet. Okay, so this is our closet space. I never wore hats till I moved to Naples, but I'm bald and it's hot here, and I just sweat all the time. And just wearing hats has been the way for me to collect my sweat because there's no hair. And this is a glorious topic of our podcast right now.
Yes.
But I started wearing hats, and I don't like, my wife likes the way they look on me backwards rather than forwards. That's why I wear them backwards, because I want her to like the way I look. Okay, so there's nothing beyond that. And it's funny, I was gearing up for like our first Easter after we launched a couple of years ago, and I had a moment, and I was like, do I? Because this is what I wear when I preach, and I was like, do I dress up for Easter? And I was just like, because we kind of used to, but is that our culture at the gathering? Like this new church we're kind of establishing? And I was like, I talked to Monica about it. She's like, just do what you always do. We always talk about trying to make not Easter not something that's foreign than to every other week of the year, right?
Yeah.
So I just said, I'm just going to dress like I usually do. So I did. And that Sunday, an older gentleman walked in who's been at our church for a long time. And he's been telling me, like, we always challenge everybody to have a one. Like, who's your one that you're trying to reach? And his one's been his daughter. He's trying to get his daughter at church. And he walks in and he goes, yep. And I said, yep. What are you talking about, Harold? And he goes, yep. I told my daughter and her husband that you would be in shorts and a backwards hat. And he said, there's no way. He goes, yep, he will be. And he goes, and they're here. And he has his hat on and he feels comfortable to come to this church because he heard the preacher wears a hat.
And you will wear a hat every Sunday for the rest of your life because of that story. I mean, that's
100%.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
incredible. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
And so
Yeah.
anyway, it is powerful. Like, your first impression does mean something. And that doesn't
Oh
mean
yeah.
you have to have, a suit. It means something differently for other people, especially with baggage with church and feeling like they
Yeah.
don't belong because they haven't cleaned up their life. Okay, so let's talk about groups. Pastors, and I think we're at fault in doing this all the time. We say, hey, you need community. And so we have this program called small groups. Go get plugged in. And sometimes we'll even communicate, hey, if you want a friend, go get in a group. And there's this false promise that we make that if you every person that joins a group, you're going to find your best friend in that group. And the reality is
Yeah.
we can't fulfill that promise. Like people walk into groups and they're like, these people are weird. These people are, like I don't connect with anybody. These guys like art and music and I'm a sports guy, or vice versa. These gals are like these women all work and I'm a stay-at-home mom, or vice versa. There's just always like group, like plugging people into these sterile groups that meet, and not that they're sterile, but just like it's
Yeah.
a dating service that you're trying to do at that point. So talk to me about like what expectations do you feel like people bring to groups? How do you all do
Yeah.
groups? And how do you ensure people, here's the heart, that don't walk through life alone? That's what we're trying to get
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you're definitely right, and we try to mitigate that expectation up front just by telling people like, it's what we try to do with small groups is we try to provide soil. Like we want to provide soil for community to grow, right? So like it doesn't mean that like that small group's going to be perfect and whatever, but it's an opportunity. Like it's an opportunity for you to make a connection. It's an opportunity for you to build that community. And we do talk a lot about the idea that you can't. There's no way. Basil, Basil the Great, he had this sermon on it, and he talked about he said Jesus commands us to do things. So we're commanded to do these things and he says you can't do them alone. So Basil says, uh, how are you going to serve your others? How are you going to wash feet? How are you going to be last of all if you live alone? Like you can't do what Jesus asks alone. So part of being in a small group is to build community and friendship. It provides the opportunity for that. It doesn't guarantee that. But part of it is so that you can actually do what Jesus asked you to do. Like there's no way you can carry your brother's burdens if you don't know what the burden is. Like if you're not in the group where man, I heard a prayer request and like, you know, I'm a sports guy and they're an art guy or whatever. Like we didn't really connect friendship wise, but man, I heard a burden and I can meet that burden, right? Um, so we try to mitigate with some of that. And it's true. I mean, I've been in small groups where, it's like, oh man, small groups this week. I'm not really looking forward to it. Like I mean, it's just trying to pull things out of it. I mean, it was not. But the flip side of that coin is, I'll say this, and this is as the pastor, like I have more access to everybody's life than a regular member does. But as the pastor, um, every relationship I have at my church has come out of a small group. Um, over time, I mean, it wasn't one miracle small group. We've been here for 12 years. We've been doing small groups for 11 years, something like that. This may be our 11th year. So let's just say 10 for a round number. Maybe three or four of those, 30 or 40% of those have been kind of dud small groups, and not that that's anybody's fault. They just didn't mix. Um, but over time, like those ones that were really great were so great. And I mean, the relationships I have come out of that. If we didn't have small groups, even as the pastor, I would have a fraction of the relationships I have right now. So it isn't always a success, but it is the reason that I have the relationships I have. So I would just say to people like you should be in one because you're gonna build that community. Like it's gonna happen.
Yeah, you fulfill. I mean, it's like I love. So far we have Desert Fathers, Blaise Pascal, and Basil. So you're hitting off your church history stuff and your philosophy
Yeah.
guys. Well, way to go. But um, uh, where was I going with that? Oh, when you say yes to community, the purpose of it, like developing that one ride or die friend is going to be a byproduct of just living life in community consistently, right? Like that,
Yeah.
like those will be the fruit of just like doing this again, 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 again. And that's magic. That's organic. That's not something that as a pastor I can plan or I can, plug X plus Y equals Z, right? It
Yeah.
is organic.
Right.
Okay. That is going to be an organic byproduct of doing life with other people. But the primary purpose is in community, which I love, is here is the place to practice the way of Jesus. Here's the
Yeah.
place to be formed by the character of Jesus, by loving someone who's hard to love, offering forgiveness to someone who hurt you, because you're going to be in
Yeah.
group with people, and guess what? People are insane.
Yeah.
People are
Yes.
imperfect. People are broken,
Yeah.
and they're going to hurt. These people are going to hurt each other. But that's so you're not going to join a group where everyone's perfect, because that group doesn't exist. You're going to join a group where people are selfish, and you're going to have to
Yeah.
practice forgiveness in that group.
Yeah.
Offer
Yeah.
grace in that group. You get to practice the way of Jesus. And then you, as a group, ensure that these are your brothers and sisters in Christ in this season. If someone's in
Yeah.
the hospital, you get to care for them. You get to visit the
Yeah.
sick. You get to help sure if someone's struggling financially, you get to care for them. Give them food. Make
Yeah.
sure they have food to drink. That's how you know
Yeah.
the needs of the people in your community, and then you get to practice the way of Jesus in it. I love that. I'm going to
Yeah.
steal that. That's good.
Yeah. We can't in our context, um, which again is a little bit different than yours, but again, it's the national appeal of the podcast, so this will reach somebody. In our context, we have to fight against, as an established church. Lots of Christians here have been Christians their entire life. We have to fight against the sense of, I don't really need community because I kind of have faith figured out.
Mm,
And I mean, like we said, it's that whole like my church is the beach. My church, and me and Jesus, like my relationship is great with Jesus. And we have people who are very like, my relationship is great with Jesus because man, I got all this Bible memorized, and I know all the stories, and I've got it all kind of figured out. And what we're saying is it doesn't really matter that you've got this Bible like memorized and that you pray and that you feel close to Jesus. Jesus has asked you to do things. There's no way you can be like, Jesus is my Lord, but I don't bear the burdens of my brother. Like,
mm,
Jesus asked you to do that. There's no way you can be like, oh, me and Jesus, he's my Lord, when you're not forgiving people. Like, you have to be in community to follow Christ. If you're not, you can't do what he asked. And so I think that's so important.
that's gold. So there are people. I know it's not a national audience, but we do have people in, I guess, northeast Naples, a very small segment of the nation, that sometimes listen to this to try and get a feel for like our church and like what I'm like and everything. And right now, I'm going to ask you to speak to them. Speak to someone. Most of them are unchurched. We have a very, very high saturated community of people that just don't go to church. Feel like they outgrew church. They're very much post-Christian. It's not that they haven't heard, but they grew up Catholic, and it's like, no need for that anymore. So if
Yeah.
they're like starting to, take steps into church, into faith with Jesus, how would you encourage that person to take a step into a group, into community, into Christian community?
Yeah. Um, I think for me, the two biggest, when I think about someone who doesn't either have faith or their faith is waned or they're just not part of a church, when I think of that kind of group, I think there's two things that for me always draw from. We kind of mentioned both of them already, but it'd be number one, you kind of touched on it just a little bit, but I mean, all of the science says that your life is just worse without community. That your mental health, your emotional health, your actual biology, your actual physical body is worse without relationship. And so, what I would just say is, if there's a part of your life that you feel like, I mean, if you just are wrestling with stress or anxiety, or you just are wrestling with anger, guilt, if you feel like part of your life is deteriorating, in our brains, I don't think we necessarily connect what's happening over here with my finances or what's happening over here with my marriage or what's happening over here with my lack of friendship or community or people around me. But there is a direct connection there. And I think, science would say that, but, obviously I think Christ would say that too, that there is a need for community you have and it's going unfulfilled and it's hurting you in other areas of your life. And so I would just say, man, if you're hurting somewhere, there's a good chance that you need community, and that lack of community is what's bubbling up in these symptoms that you have over here in this part of your life. And so that you should be in a community because it'll be good for you holistically. But I would say specifically that I think it'd be great for you to check out a Christian community because you know we all are on this constant treadmill of trying to prove ourselves at our job, in our families, in our marriage, trying to get married to that girl or that guy. We're always just trying to prove ourselves. And the one place you don't have to prove anything is with Christ. He knows, like, you can't fool him anyway, and he doesn't care. Like, he wants to meet you where you're at. He wants to pull you in a direction. He wants to lead you somewhere. He wants to lead you to quiet waters and green pastures. He wants to lead you to an abundant life. But he wants to meet you where you're at. And so, you know, there's an opportunity in your life. There's a chance here for you to have a group that you don't have to be on the treadmill with. Like, that you don't have to. There's a group that can be a place where you can just be honest about where you're at, and everybody there is going to love you on the other side of it. And so that's why I would just say, like, you should be a part of a Christian community, because you probably need it physically, biologically, emotionally. But I mean, you're not going to get what they offer anywhere else. Everywhere else is going to be this treadmill of proving yourself. The small group, the Christian community, it's the one place you don't have to do that.
Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Cody, for your time. Thanks for bringing your
Absolutely.
wisdom and your expertise and your passion to this conversation. It just oozes out of you, and I'm just so grateful for your friendship and the way you've been that for me. And I know that you've helped me learn how to practice a lot of the ways of Jesus, and so I appreciate that, my friend.
I appreciate you.
Hey, everybody, thanks again for tuning into another episode of Huffer and Friends. You can follow us on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. And remember, as always, that you are made for more. So don't settle for anything less. Have a good day.